Bitcoin is the solution to redistributing wealth more fairly because it is a solution that requires no force. It is opt-in, so you decide whether or not you want to opt into the program. You decide whether or not you want to be part of this program that redistributes wealth more fairly, more evenly across the society, that gives the working and middle classes it transfers some of that wealth that has accumulated at the top back into their possession and control. It's a program that you decide you sign up for, you opt into. And this is exactly what we see occurring with Bitcoin. It's this historic transfer of wealth that is simply occurring. It is not being forced. It is not being compelled. It's as if it's a force of nature. It is as if it is this apolitical event that is occurring rather than a political agenda being driven by ideology and politicians and institutions with their own agendas. It is this natural event that is occurring, and that is why it's fair. It really is the most brilliant method of redistributing wealth that has accumulated in the 1% of the 1%, in all of these institutions that benefit from being close to the money printers. It is such a brilliant method of redistributing that accumulated wealth at the top back to the working and the middle class, precisely because it simply is this apolitical event, this natural event that is just occurring regardless of anyone's ability to object to it or to resist it. In fact, the only way to resist this great this great event, if you are one of the elites or you are one of the powerful institutions of this world, the only way to resist it is to buy Bitcoin, which ironically amplifies the process further. It's this self-reinforcing positive feedback loop. The only way to avoid being on the wrong side of this wealth transfer is to be in Bitcoin, which simply amplifies the event itself. This is what Satoshi Nakamoto understood from the very beginning. This is what he designed Bitcoin to do. This is what, from the very origin of Bitcoin, this is how its incentive model was designed. And it simply is brilliant because it is redistributing wealth to the middle and working classes precisely because it is the middle and working classes that are able to get in first. And whoever gets in first, more wealth is transferred to them. Because individuals, just a guy working at a factory or a woman working as a nurse, these are just normal individuals. They have high levels of agility in terms of being able to convert their savings into Bitcoin. They don't have to run through any hoops or anything like that. They just buy Bitcoin and it's done. This is critical because it allows for the people who deserve to have more wealth transferred to them to get into Bitcoin first. And the sooner you get in, the more wealth is ultimately transferred to you. It is the institutions and the elites that have the most barriers to entry. It is them that have for years been on a whole, incapable of getting Bitcoin exposure because they are so there's so much red tape and bureaucracy, and institutions are very slow to change. This is precisely why Bitcoin is not a an event that is primarily benefiting the elite or the legacy institutions of this world. It is an event that is primarily benefiting the working and middle classes. It really is brilliant. Bitcoin solves the problem of wealth inequality. It redistributes wealth, but without force. It is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant scheme for solving this problem. The one problem, however, is that you have to opt in. And what I see when I talk to no-coiners is in many cases, a stubborn refusal to opt in. Now, is this a problem, or is this a matter of personal responsibility? At what point do we say to someone who is a no-coiner, well, you had your chance and you refused it. You have this chance to opt in to the greatest redistribution of wealth in human history. But that's the thing, it's opt in. If you don't opt in, you're actually on the wrong side of it. You have to choose. You have the freedom to choose, and you must you must opt in. If you do not, if you decline to do so, you will not participate. And I have to say, at what point do we simply not feel bad for someone who decides not to opt into this? Because I would say there's been plenty of time to figure this out. Plenty of time. More than enough time to consider this great transfer of wealth to be entirely fair. To be as fair as you could possibly imagine a great transfer of wealth to be. To be as fair as a redistribution of wealth can possibly be. You really could not dream up any scheme that is any more fair of this. But that is precisely because it is opt-in. There's been plenty of time, I believe, for it to be considered a fair process. At this point, if you are a no-coiner, or if you know some no-coiners, there's just a rapidly closing window of what I would call sympathy. We are getting to the point where no-coiners are going to be left behind because of their refusal to opt in, and there's no excuse. There's really no barrier to entry anymore. It is very, very, very easy to buy Bitcoin and custody it safely. It is very easy to learn about it. No one is unaware of Bitcoin anymore. Everyone knows about Bitcoin. It is a household term. Anyone pretty much of any age is now aware of Bitcoin. And to that extent, they are now responsible for their decision, whether to opt in or opt out. Unfortunately, many no-coiners are essentially, they're going to be left behind. Their refusal to opt into this great transfer of wealth is, I hate to say it, it is their own fault. Because you can't just expect politicians to do this kind of thing for you. If we're going to have a real redistribution of wealth that is done fairly, this is what it looks like. But the catch is, it is a voluntary event that you must opt into. And to the extent that you refuse to do so, I don't think that you deserve any sympathy We are past that point. If we look at the performance of Bitcoin in the last decade, to me, it's clear that this is not the performance of an asset in isolation. This is the hallmark of a transfer of wealth that is occurring. And to the extent that it becomes just blatantly obvious that Bitcoin really is the greatest transfer of wealth in human history, to the extent that that just becomes so obvious, it's the only explanation for Bitcoin's performance. Well, when it becomes that obvious and you still refuse to opt in, then that's the thing about personal responsibility, is no one can force it upon you, and you have to live with the consequences of your decision. Your decision to refuse to participate in this great transfer of wealth, this great redistribution of wealth back down to the working and the middle classes. At least I hope that as many of these type of people, just average citizens, my hope is that as many as possible decide to opt in. Because the thing is, once the institutions and the elites and the billionaires and the governments, once they start to pile into Bitcoin, then the event is over. The redistribution of wealth, that opportunity, that once in a humanity event, it's over. And that was the opportunity. Being able to front run the big money in this world, being able to front run them, that was the opportunity that Bitcoin conferred upon humanity. That was the redistribution of wealth. But it's a narrow window of opportunity, measured in years, measured perhaps in a decade and a half, maybe 2 decades at most. But the opportunity is slipping away. Once the big money, once the elites get into Bitcoin, once they go all in, that's it. That opportunity is gone.